Hello and welcome to my final project presentation for LIS 4761, Intro to Data and Text Mining. The professor is Dr. Lonnie Hagan, and I'm Jermaine Covington, and I will be your guide through this project. The purpose of this project is to explore the intersection between location and customer feedback to assist in determining where resources are best allocated. I initially hypothesized that sort of the cultural differences between the United States and the rest of the world would lead to different focuses when it comes to how concerns are addressed or to how compliments are given. Particularly on Twitter, we're using the dataset tweets-1.csv, which was given to us in the assignment page and consists of 14,640 real air flight related tweets made between 16 and 24 February 2015. Particularly, we will be focusing on the text of the tweet, of course, the location of the user, and the sentiment value that was given to us as part of the data set. So we won't have to do necessarily any sort of dictionary-based sentiment analysis in our actual programming. This analysis contains elements of geographic analysis as given to us in lesson 3, as well as language analysis of the bag of words type that was given to us in lesson 4, and of course visualization, which was lesson 1 and before really. I did make an attempt, I will say now because I'm kind of proud of it, I did make an attempt to put all of this into a Shiny app and have a nice fancy thing where you could click on it and it did not work out for me. If at some point it works out between me recording this presentation, I will definitely include an addendum probably in the comments or somewhere in my code or something like that as to where that can be found, because I really want to get that to work, but that clearly wasn't something that would work out for me. But we'll begin with the geographical analysis, essentially just looking at where the tweets were coming from, raw. This involved drawing from Google, the Google API, the exact location of where the tweets would come using the location variable, which is very interesting. I had some difficulty using location variable, which included a place name, or using the coordinates variable, which had actual numbers. The location variable, the problem with that was that everyone had a location variable, or most everyone had a location variable, but people could type anything they wanted into that space. But one thing that I learned about the geocode command was that as long as there is a place name listed in the in that string of text, it will just look for the place name and actually be able to return it, which basically assuaged all my fears about not being able to have any places at all. The issue with the coordinates is just essentially that there are only about 900 or so people who had actually had coordinates in the entire data set of 14 or so thousand. So we ended up, after getting everyone a coordinate and based on their location, we ended up with around 9,000 or so, 9,500 tweets, which I figured would be significant enough. And if you look at the location specifics, you can see most of the tweets, as expected, are coming from the United States. Twitter is an American website. That's not, necessarily, Americans are very vocal people. That's not necessarily a surprise, but there was a sizable European response, particularly from the UK. You'll see sort of a similar density sort of in Western Europe kind of going on there. And there's sort of a sparsity of other tweets kind of going on in the rest of the world: South America, Latin America, Africa, East Asia, Australia. But the majority of tweets clearly were from the US and Western Europe, not even necessarily Eastern Europe, but Western Europe. Mostly negative. There's lots of red on there. You don't see a lot of the blue that represents positive. Lots of red. And I assume that's because you're more likely to go to Twitter when you have a problem with an airline than you would if the airline gave you an amazing experience. Anger is one of those emotions that does things for you. And that demonstrates itself actually in the language analysis. I will have visuals in a moment. Overall, negative tweets, as we learned in language analysis, were more concerned about time, right? And actually, there were more of them overall. And the feelings generally were more intense. They included the words such as canceled, now, delayed, and hours, which topped the list, whereas positive tweets were about customer service. Service, best, customer, and awesome were words that topped the list, just in general, not even with regard to the geographic location of the user. And you can see that here in these three word clouds: negative on the left, canceled, now, hold, customer, hour, service, help, delayed. Overall is on the right, which of course you can see the fact that many of the negative words kind of make a resurgence in the overall can show you just how overpowering the negative data and the negative tweets kind of were in terms of sheer numbers. But positive, you had things like thank and thanks, as well as, service also being a thing, customer service as a phrase, awesome, great, uh, just general words that sort of mean positive things. Um, Entering into the combined analysis, where we attempted to sort of combine both the geographics and the topic analysis of, well, this page here, uh, we essentially found not very much of a difference. I expected there personally to be a much bigger difference than there was. But I guess maybe my understanding of global cultures is a bit less nuanced than it should be. The top words, generally were the same on both ends, both positive and negative for the USA and the world. And I want to note our world data set excluded the USA. The world is not the entire data set. It was the data set minus the American tweets, or the tweets that we could pinpoint to be within that American latitude and longitude. Um, a lot of the same words make a resurgence, though albeit in a different order. Of course, canceled is all the way in sort of the middle of the negative world data set, but it's at the very top of the American data set. Uh, I kind of expected there to be a bit more nuance here, a bit more of a, maybe there's something that Americans would consider negative that the rest of the world would consider positive, or vice versa. But that's not really a thing that really appeared in this data set. Though I still would like to see a bit more, if I'm to be completely honest with you. To conclude, however, people want to get to the places where they want to go quickly. There wasn't a sizable difference in this data set with regard to the concerns that were raised in the tweets, as we can see here. If I were to improve this project, which I hope to do so at a later date, I would get that shiny app under control, and I'd probably include more non-US data. It kind of didn't really quite hit me how much non-US, or I guess world as I've put it here, data there was, or how little there was, until I looked at the positive world values here and I saw things in the way. But 10 frequency for thanks. The only words that break 10 frequency, that's 10 tweets mentioned, are thanks and thank, which are variations on one another, right? And then of course much, back. These are really kind of all very general terms. Um, Nothing really sort of like fantastic customer. Airport was kind of one that got me. I figured, Americans wouldn't really be thinking about how the airport really looks or feels. It's really more about the customer service, or sort of how the airline would treat you. I'd like to see to what extent, maybe the world may consider sort of the facilities available in the airport, or the cleanliness of the airport, or how the airport functions as a whole versus how the airline itself manages things, because those are two separate parts of the airport. But I would love to include more non-US data in a future date, in a future expansion of this project. That ultimately is the end of my final project presentation. Thank you for watching, and I hope you have a nice day and make good choices. Keep on.